I was 10 years old, lived in the deep south. Me and my parents lived in the woods, in a little house a couple of miles from the tiny little town where I grew up. To get to our house, you had to turn down a paved road, travel approximately a mile, and we lived in the woods down a short dirt road to the left. There were other homes sort of nearby, but woods separated all of us, so there was lots of privacy. It was summer. I was bored because until I learned to drive, my summers were incredibly boring. My mom was not sociable, so I only had company or visited rarely, and we went to church and we went shopping once a week in the nearest major city. But other than that, me and my mom just stayed at home, alone. In this little town, most people didn't even lock their doors. It was and still is probably one of the safest towns in America. So in the summer, we would have the doors open and windows open, nothing locked, never dreaming that our safety could be threatened. One day, my uncle, his wife, and 3 kids showed up. His kids were my age, and I was excited. My mom never looked forward to these visits. She just was not social, and our house was tiny. The kids had to camp out in the living room. She knew my uncle was coming, but he wasn't due for another couple of weeks, but for some reason he decided to come early. It was summer evening. Me and my 3 cousins were out running around in the yard, playing like kids do, when my cousins got to arguing. My uncle was in the living room. He called them in and made them sit down for a while, until they could learn to behave. I stayed outside and practiced cartwheels, something I was desperately trying to learn before school started back. I noticed that this big guy came walking into the yard. He was carrying a limb. He walked up on the porch and knocked on the screen door. My mom came to the door and he told her he was lost. He said he was staying with some people and he wasn't from here. And he went to the store with them and they drove off and left him and he didn't know how to get back to their house. My mom, she told him that she would call this lady that lived down the road from us and asked if our teenage sons would drive down and pick him up and help him get back to where he was staying. My mom left him standing on the porch and walked away to make the phone call, and he did something that I thought was a little strange. He opened the screen door and stuck his head in, looking around. Of course, he saw my uncle, who was this big, strong, stocky guy sitting on the couch. Mom called this lady. Her boys drove up and got him pretty quickly, and he was gone. We didn't think much of it until my uncle and family left because we were too busy and I was having fun. But after my uncle's family left at the end of the week, we found out some things. First of all, we found out this guy was not lost at all. A relative that lived at the end of the road where you turn off to head toward our house said he's seen that guy walk past his house 2 or 3 times in a row. And he would stay for a while, then he would walk back by. Then the lady whose son gave this guy a ride, she called my mom a few days after this happened and she said he told her sons exactly how to get to where he was staying. She also told my mom that me and her needed to stay in the house and keep the doors locked because this young man was up to no good. I believe he had been watching and saw a petite woman and a little girl home alone all day with doors unlocked and unassuming of danger. Anyway, I've always wished my mom would have asked these boys' mother why she felt that this guy was dangerous to us, but my mom just didn't. But anyway, creepy stranger who came into our yard that day. Let's never meet again. I started working at my current job last spring. I would unlock the front door, disarm the alarm, walk downstairs, in the dark, unlock this cage that keeps the drunkies at the bar upstairs at night from wandering downstairs, and crawl along a long dark hallway with no windows to get to the light switch at the end of the hall. This always creeps me out, and I end up holding my eyes between my fingers like brass knuckles. I'm a woman in my mid-20s, and I live in a pretty bad neighborhood, and ninja sliding down the walls on the opposite side of whatever doorway is coming up just because it's pitch black and I am a scaredy bear. By the time I get to the end of the hall and flip on the light, my heart is always pounding out of my chest. I always struggle to find the right key to let me in the cafe. The whole situation started when Tom, a golf course employee, mentioned that he kept shutting the door between the men's locker room and the storage area that leads to the women's, and every time he would go back in there, it would be open again. This, along with some strange noises. Shortly after, someone from the golf course came over to tell me that they found someone's entire life packed away in one of their hundreds of lockers that no one uses, and they thought somebody was living in the storage room between the men's and women's bathrooms. He must have been coming in before the golf course people set the alarms, when they left in the evenings, and leaving after the cafe person would come in and turn off the alarm in the morning. So that means that every morning, as I blindly shuffled my way down that long dark hallway, alone, one of those pitch black doorways actually did have someone hiding behind it. A few days later, a red-faced, angry, bald man in a Vietnam-era Army issue glasses came into the cafe and started throwing his arms around, yelling about his stuff getting thrown out. They asked him about the contents of the locker. His answers about specific items led them to realize this was the man who was secretly living in one of the buildings. I never found out much about him, whether he was dangerous or just homeless. But watching him scream about his stuff made it clear that he wasn't 100% rational. I still work there and do a darkness shuffle down the hallway every morning when I work. And although they say everything is on the up and up with the alarms and the doors locking, it still creeps the hell out of me. A year or so ago, I found myself, along with my fiancée, the victim of the horror stories I love so much. I've been a fan of horror stories since I was a kid. Back in 2005, my boyfriend of 3 years and I broke up. I essentially had mental health issues I was struggling to accept while we were together, so we took some time apart. During the few months I modeled some blog standard modeling, and some of the nude variety. I even had a Tumblr for behind-the-scenes activities that I am not proud of that's now gone. I got paid well, so I thought nothing of it until I got contacted by some fans. These fans were creepy to the point that they bombarded me with comments about wanting to have sex with me, by force if necessary. But like the creeps they were, my fans tried to use this information to meet up with me. When I refused, it all took a turn, with messages and snapshots alongside spam on the other platforms. I just started to ignore them, hoping it would calm down. My ex received a lot of the usual death threats that ensued with white knighting on Tumblr, and we were both starting to get our lives in better places. Until I got a message. The message contained the name of where my ex worked. He hadn't worked there long at this point, maybe a month or so, but he didn't broadcast his job. Only friends and family knew he had it, and apparently so did my fans. When I tried to make it seem like I knew nothing to prevent any further threats, they responded with, "We could just wait around for him until after his shift," before sending me a picture of his work location. "Will you meet us now?" I pleaded and begged for them to leave me be, scared they'd actually do something. I thought it had worked, but they never responded. After making sure my ex was okay, I tried to calm down for a few days. Then came the next photo message. The bus stop my ex used to get home in the center of our city. I contacted him to find out where he was, and luckily, he was on his way home a few minutes prior to that photo. I assumed they wouldn't know where to go even if they got the bus. I didn't want to scare my ex. I still loved him. I didn't want him endangered because of my stupid, naive actions. He was probably suspicious at that point, but he never said a word about it to me. A day or so later, I received a new photo message. They were on the road near his house. That made me lose it. I texted my ex, got him to lock his doors and windows. He wasn't the only one home. He lived with his family at this point, the people I used to live with, who I lived with for 2 years prior to our breakup. Not knowing at this point how they got the information, we were both honestly scared for our lives. That night, I got an unexpected Skype call from my ex. He explained to me that he had had enough, how they told him they'd hacked his phone and my laptop to track us down, and how, if he didn't end his life, how they'd reveal to my family and friends my private life. He apologized as he started swallowing a bunch of pills before apologizing to me for everything and hanging up. I truly believed my ex had gone to kill himself until I received a text from his old phone, a number he hadn't used in years. He told me how he was okay and how he had to fake his death to keep them away. I played along, even to the point of messaging these fans, telling them I was going to the police, and how I'd tracked them down, how they killed my baby's father. I told them I was pregnant to see if that would get them to calm down, to no avail. They apologized for my loss and disappeared after that. Until the end of last year, my ex and I, after this disaster, got back together since we both knew living without each other wasn't an option. We got engaged and started looking for a place to live. Usual adult decisions. One day, in October, I got a message on my personal Instagram. "We're still watching." Since that point, I've made sure we have been careful about what we post. We have changed devices and got rid of our webcams. To my fans, if you ever see this, let's never meet.